and welcome to The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang-Elion, bringing you interesting people who are dynamic, committed, focused, and of course, artistic here in the heart of Hawaii, but not limited to Hawaii. We are broadcasting here from Pioneer Plaza, deep in the basement in room 30. If you have interests, comments, concerns, all those good things, you can send it to us on our Facebook page at The Art of Life with Willow Chang. We have a very special guest for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Joshua Edelstein in the house.
Hello.
Hello. Now, you're like, Joshua Edelstein, have I heard that name before? Well, if you haven't, you better take note, my friends, because he is, may I say it, a Renaissance man.
I'm just this guy, you know?
He's just this guy. So we are going to spend our very short time together, and I'm warning you, we might bring him back again because he has a lot to say. We're going to be discussing travel, jewelry, music, language, and all kinds of Hawaiian kind of stuff because Josh did grow up here in Hawaii as well. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So we always like to start off our show to let people know a little bit of the creation story. How did Spider-Man become Spider-Man?
Oh boy.
How did Joshua Edelstein become the person you are? Because you are interdisciplinary, you've traveled the world, you stayed with your passions for an exceedingly long time and continue to do so. So how did this guy start?
Gosh, well, I definitely have to thank my parents. They always encouraged me, and certainly when I was young and vulnerable, my father told me that I was not only the sum of all of my experiences, but that I could do anything I wanted.
You're one of those people.
Yeah, well, so I believed him. And that has led to a precocious life where, you know, as you mentioned, I grew up here, born and raised, and went to HAWAIIAN Elementary and Iolani High School, and I started making jewelry at Iolani. They had a great jewelry program at the time. And so that's also when I began to pursue music. And again, my parents never said, "Nah, that's too difficult." Yeah, they just basically said, "Okay, all right, do it." And
so they never got the son. You got to become a doctor, a lawyer. None of that stuff.
No, they just their requirement was simply that we do whatever we chose to do. We did our best.
Oh,
so that's,
I think your parents and my parents were separated at birth. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
So. And they themselves never limited themselves. When, as you know, when I was in, I guess, second grade, it was the first time that my family went to China because my father got the opportunity to teach abroad. He taught at UH for 30 years and had the opportunity to teach American literature to Chinese students who spoke English. And so the whole family went. And I was 8. So cool. I was 8. I mean, they had children who were 8 and 10, and they thought, yeah, you know, 1980, let's go to China.
Oh my God, and this is like right after Nixon when they opened up the whole friendship thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so. Very cool, very cool. So while I was like slaving away at Munland School, dying 1,000 deaths, let's say 1,000, it sounds poetic, you're rocking at Pinyin and learning at Real. How was the transition for you? Was it challenging, or you just, you sink or swim, you just do it because you have to?
Yeah, I suppose, I don't know, because I was 8, I didn't know any better. Yeah. I didn't know that this was an unusual thing to do.
It is auspicious number.
It is an auspicious number, that's true. And also, I really didn't know any different. So yes, there was a language barrier at first, but they threw us into a Chinese school even though we didn't speak the language.
Wow.
Because they, like you, I guess, as you say, they wanted us to sink or swim.
Yeah.
My best friend was a Japanese kid who was the son of Japanese teachers at the same university, and you know, we spoke Chinese together because I didn't speak Nihongo and he didn't speak Eigo, so all we could do was speak in Chinese, and we didn't think this was strange at all.
That is,
so
listen up, parents and parents-to-be, good stuff. So I'm curious, did you guys converse in Cantonese and Mandarin? Like, what was the language?
Mandarin, I didn't learn Cantonese until I was in college.
You learned the useful stuff, basically. Did I just say that?
It depends on what you're doing.
It's true.
You know,
it's true.
Cantonese is very good for business if you want to work in Hong Kong.
It's good when you're ordering in a Chinese restaurant in Hawaii.
Both are, yeah.
Yes.
They both help. They do. And so that also, I guess, is sort of what helped to produce the me that is.
That's awesome. And now, when did you come back to Hawaii?
So I just moved back not quite 2 years ago.
No, wait, prior to that. Time, the Wayback Machine.
Oh, the Wayback Machine from China. So we were there for 2 years. So I lived there in China from 80 to 82. and then also again from 85 to 86. So 3rd, 4th, and 8th grade.
Oh my goodness gracious. But here's what's fascinating to me is that you retained and you continued to study the Chinese. And if I can quote you more or less, I remember like the first time I met you, you said, my goal in life is to write the definitive Chinese dictionary. Do you remember this? It's a long time ago. And I was like, wow, I've never had any aspirations to do such a thing with Chinese. You stayed with Chinese. What was the root of that, or the seed of that inspiration? Because a lot of people start something and then they abandon it as soon as they can.
Certainly. Well, part of it was I do love it. They're sort of on the back burner, the back burner right now. But I am still working on the dictionary, which actually has expanded into maybe 4 dictionaries. And so, because when you think about it, a dictionary is. If you think of a language as a database, a dictionary is just a query against that database. So it depends on what you're looking for. So you can have multiple dictionaries that do different things depending on why you want them. So that's why there are 4. So I'm still sort of working on them, but and so that's part of the passion, I guess, is because just I like playing with the language that way. But I suppose I needed something marketable. And I just wanted to be a rock star. Yeah. And my parents were cool with that, but they said, well, you should really go to college and have a degree so that if the rock star doesn't pan out, you still have something to do. And so I was like, all right, that sounds good. So went to Georgetown and kept studying Chinese. So
that is fantastic. That really is. Now, I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine because,
oh boy.
In honor, I don't know if y'all can see this out there, but
oh my gosh, I forgot about that one.
Did you forget about this? I didn't forget about this. So there's a famous sketch on Saturday Night Live. It had Paul Simon. I'm a big Paul Simon fan. And he's on a desert island, and it's this whole thing where they're making gifts. I think it's with Victoria Jackson. And he like smelted metal, and he makes all these like amazing things. And she's like, I gave you a coconut. And I thought of that today because I thought, what better way to cement a friendship than making somebody's name in Chinese, in silver. That's a telephone in case you're wondering. Isn't this amazing?
We need to get that on my website.
Yes.
I'm going to have to figure out that.
And this is something that I was so moved by that. And as you can tell, so this is the character for Leo, or Lo, as we say in Cantonese, which is part of my Chinese name. It's one of the few things I still remember how to write in Chinese, thank God. I'm not just using a chop, but I know my name. Have you done a lot of Asian characters or pinyin or what have you? Do you get requests for that?
Not as many requests. Some. Actually, I'm working on a piece right now for technically Vietnamese, but since way back they used the Chinese characters.
Right.
I'm actually working on a bracelet right now, doing that. So I suppose yes, I do work in the characters a lot. Did I bring anything here? Actually, this piece right here, which I don't know if I should show that to the camera right there. This is something I just designed. It's for Chinese New Year.
Oh, I see it.
It's the Dao Fu, or the Fu Dao, depending on what you want to call it, which is the upside down character for prosperity, so that you're pouring prosperity into your life.
I love it. And so also when it's on the person, you look down and you're actually looking at it.
You actually read the character. So that's brand new for in anticipation of Chinese New Year on the 31st. So.
Bring on the horse. I'm wearing my snakeskin today to give a nice send up to that snake. Bye-bye. Slither on out.
So, of course, with you, one of the most beneficial things about knowing Chinese, as you remember, is that I was one of the only friends of yours that your dad would actually talk to.
In general, not only just in Chinese, but it's like my dad was a man of few words, and I have to give a shout out to my dad because my dear old dad passed away 6 years ago today, and in honor of my dad, I'm wearing something which I might have to have you doctor. It's his ID bracelet.
Oh, wow.
It has his name, and then it has the year he graduated from Harvard, and it needs to be doctored because the clasp is not as strong, so I have a safety pin because I'm a punk rock girl. But when my father gave this to me, man, I loved wearing this. And it was interesting because when I was a young adult, people would say, Albert Chang, is that your husband? No, that's my dad. And my husband, just out of the blue, because I'm a big believer in the collective consciousness, he was sharing a story with me that when he was born, he was given an ID bracelet. And he's so sad because it's long gone, it's lost. And I was thinking about this. It's like, jewelry is such a personal experience, and it's on your person, and I really think it gets charged by your mana. How did you get into jewelry? I know that your mom is an artistically inclined woman, a really masterful jewelry designer who works not with silver, if I'm aware, but more like beads.
She does more beads and hand weaving. She's very good. She's been in the Gallery Awards Center for well over a decade now.
Yeah, I went from 1,000 to 1 million now.
Yeah, something. And she's really good. My father also used to weave much larger weavings, and he's shown at the Art Academy or the HMA now.
So the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
So, and so the jewelry was more, I discovered that there was a class, and it piqued my interest, and I had not ever conceived that one could do that until 9th or 10th grade.
It's very hands-on, it's very tactile. Obviously, it's three-dimensional, and then there's different process, whether you're reductive or you're adding. Do you have a preference? Do you have a favorite style? I mean, we're going to go and look at these pieces throughout the show, but they're all very unique, and they're all really different, and they clearly use different techniques. So some people find something like a niche, and then they just stay there, and they do 1,000 dolphin paintings for the rest of their life.
Sure.
We went back to 1,000 from a million. How about you? I mean, they're very different.
They are. I definitely love the hands-on approach. I mean, that's how every jeweler starts. But at the same time, as new technologies come along, one tries that. And whether it's a new technology in terms of just a new process. So, for example, chasing and repoussé, and I don't have a good example of that here, but these sort of old world silversmithing techniques where you're punching out a design from the back or something like that, versus something that's just simply hand-sawn or using software to do it. So I've later in life started using CAD software.
I've seen software. Okay, these are the two things that kind of make me say, okay. Software, if you maybe could tell us a little bit about that. And then also 3D imaging. I mean, I've seen this on television. I do watch TV, where you can draw something and there are computers that can actually do 3D imaging, and boop, it just pops it out, and you've got a rendering of what it is that you've created, which that could be dangerous.
Well, I do that. There are actually a couple, I think you have a couple of images of the jewelry. There's a set of rings, the Four Seasons rings, and then there's a plumeria demi hoops that I did.
And we will come to those at the end of the show, so sit tight. You got to stay with us.
And those were both done in 3D modeling software.
Wow.
And it really just opens the doors, because rather than having to craft that by hand, because honestly my wax carving skills are not as good as my working directly in metal skills. So, but it allows me to basically sort of, the imagination is the limit, and the mastery of the software. And so you can create these 3D things that are too fine to perhaps carve in wax, like those rings.
Yeah.
And then somebody outputs that on a 3D printer and then casts it in gold, and there it is. So cool. It really has opened up the door. And I was already doing that. So for example, something like this Star of David was done in Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
So that's
a little closer.
A little closer. So that's also, that's sort of the lesser side of CAD. Up. Sorry, thank you. So that's the lesser side of CAD in terms of, it's still computer-assisted design because you're using a program, and then this was actually, although the original model for this was cut by hand, subsequent iterations have been laser cut. And so you need that computer guidance there. So everything from laser cutting to 3D printing to subtractive process on a 3D mill is used. So
now, back in the Stone Ages, I was at KCC. It's true. I'll give a shout out. And
I live right near me.
I took a sculpture class with Sean Brown, whose work is all over Honolulu. Very prolific artist, and we did lost wax. And I had just come back from Egypt, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make a Hamza, I'm gonna make a Hand of Fatima, and it was in brass. And I can't even tell you how freaking heavy this thing was. And I made a hole in it thinking I was going to wear it as a pendant. Hilarious.
How big is it?
mean, it's like this big. I was kind of like going for that like OG kind of feel. I wanted it to be substantial and artistic. And it feels like a paperweight hanging around my neck. I mean, after 5 minutes, it's like there's no way that this can be a necklace because it's just too painful. But the thing that was so surprising to me is lost wax is hard. I mean, it is not easy. And if you don't know what we're talking about, Wikipedia, it's called lost wax process. It's one of the oldest means of creating 3D sculpture and jewelry and things like that. I would encourage every person who loves jewelry to try their hand at something artistic. Because my goodness, what a plate of humble pie it is. Suddenly those El Chupo earrings from China, you're like, hey man, they actually still made this product, even though it's mass-produced. It's amazing. Your artistic process, I'm always curious, and I don't think it has to be singular. Do you start off with a dream or a sketch? Is it always prompted by a client's desire or need? Is it problem solving? Is it more on the creative side? Do you see a movie and say, wow, I want to make something that makes me feel the way that movie did? Curious.
I think there's a little bit of everything. It's definitely problem solving when I'm consulting with a client. I'd like to get obviously their input, but I've developed over the years actually a 10-question questionnaire that I use to basically discern the aesthetic of the person I'm working with, because everybody has an aesthetic, whether they know it or not. And what I don't ask about in this questionnaire is jewelry, because I don't want any sort of presuppositions about what they're looking for. So I'm asking about architecture and topiary or landscape design, that kind of thing, because I basically want to sort of figure out what
floats their boat.
What floats their boat, and then it becomes problem solving, because I have to take all of that information and say, well, this is the jewelry that you will like.
Fantastic.
And 9 times out of 10 it works.
Now, I just saw something yesterday, this is going to be topical here, on Facebook that's floating around, and it was, what city should you be living in? Did you see this one?
I haven't seen it.
I tried it out of curiosity, and I was so irritated because I couldn't get to an answer because, one, I'm a non-drinker. So they had like, what's your choice of, I don't know, Jesus juice or whatever they called it. They had some catchy term. And then they said, which Beyonce do you relate to? And I was like, dude, if you're Beyonce illiterate, you can't get past these 10 questions to determine that you're supposed to be living in Rome. Maybe I'm supposed to be living in Tokyo, and I don't know because I don't know enough about Beyonce.
That's true.
Shambolic. So I'm sure that your test has nothing like that.
Oh, I didn't take it. I saw it floating around, but I've already.
Like your jewelry test, there's no questions about Beyonce, about their aesthetic.
Oh, the aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I guess which Beyonce you are could be a form of aesthetic.
This is what the world's come to. Awesome. Alrighty. So there was something else that I wanted to ask you. We're going back into the language thing.
Certainly.
Because we're going to go segue into music. Chinese.
Yes.
I have this theory. Did it help you with your tonal ability, your musical abilities?
I honestly don't know. No, well, so here's the thing. I've heard the theory that this is helpful, but I know Chinese people who can't sing in China, and they're tone deaf.
He said it, not me.
No, I mean I grew up there, and I know guys who can't sing, and they just don't. I don't think it has anything to do with it. It's really ultimately it's sort of every tone essentially becomes a different morpheme. So you don't necessarily think of it as a tonal language if you are speaking it from the native perspective. And I was young enough that when I speak Chinese, I don't think in Chinese, or rather I don't translate, I think in Chinese.
Wow.
So I don't have this idea of, I mean sometimes, but with words I'm less familiar with, but it's like, which tone was that? But it's not, but producing that tone isn't an effort at music. It's just, well, that's the correct tone.
Fantastic. So if you didn't know,
that sounded really pretentious.
He plays the bass.
Dude.
And at the top of my list here, I wrote Barney Miller.
Oh gosh.
I mean, I guess Barney Miller was probably replaced by Seinfeld.
Right? Exactly.
Or people who know Flea. What do you think is the biggest misconception about, I mean, there's all kinds of bass. There's upright bass, there's electric bass, et cetera, et cetera. What's the biggest conception about bass players?
That we can only count to 4.
Can a bass player exist without rhythm? I think it's impossible.
No, I mean, I think that bass is an extremely rhythmic instrument.
It is.
So, you know, and it is in the rhythm section with the drums, although it is also melodic
Yeah.
and stringed like the guitar.
Yeah,
So
good vibrations.
it is, I think.
So did you choose the bass or did the bass choose you?
I think the bass chose me. I first got into music when I was 15. I was watching the Iolani competition of Brown Bags to Stardom.
Oh, I entered that.
So, well, so I had not yet entered that. And it was a bunch of my brother's friends. He was a senior that year. I was in 9th grade. And a bunch of his friends did a performance of Louie Louie. And it just looked like so much fun. And it was like one of these after-school specials where, you know, where sort of the camera swoops down on me, you know, down, and as it focuses in on my face, and as my face is lit from the light of the stage, you know, the sound of the band kind of like fades out as it focuses, and you get that swell of orchestral music, and then silence, and you hear me go, that's what I want to do. But I didn't know anything about music. So I went home and I was like, Mom, I want guitar lessons. She said, great, get guitar lessons. And I, no, you do it. So she did get me guitar lessons because that's what's out in front, and that's what, as a non-musician, that is the, you know,
that's the gateway drug.
It's the sexy instrument. It's that's what everyone wants to be.
It's the portable instrument. Talk to the piano people, they know.
So I spent a long time trying to be a guitar player, and without going too far into depth of the story, basically I think it was the summer of '91. I was home after the first year of college, and I was walking to McCully Shopping Center with my dad, and I just sort of had this epiphany that I was a bass player.
Did you see furry guitars upstairs?
I didn't.
Okay.
But it was sort of one of these just light bulb moments.
You're like, I need 4 strings.
I'm a bass player, and everything changed for me after that. So I think it chose me, definitely.
That's fantastic. Now, so some people, they get a little discouraged, and then they chuck out the whole thing. They throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I was never a great guitar player.
Oh, well, hey, we can't be all things, right? I don't know how to cook. I do know how to make some wicked toast. Do we have time for some music? I haven't heard the omniscient voice of God, so I'm just going to keep going.
All right.
Okay. Want to, like, slap some strings? You're like, she said that.
She did.
I did.
Sure. I don't know what the time for the next segment is. Let me.
No, we're just keeping it real here. It's the art of the improvisation.
So this is Amy.
Ooh, Amy's a beauty.
It's spelled the French way because she is Quebecois.
Oh my goodness. My apologies.
Well, most of her is Quebecois.
If you want to hear a really crazy Quebecois, you got to fly Air France when they do the on-air announcements. It's like, wow, it sounds American.
So what can I play for you?
Whatever you feel like.
Well, so
what would be like the bass noodling? Noodling is the term that musicians like to use when they're just kind of
it can be messing
being
around.
decorative, messing around stuff.
So as an example, I guess, of what are you getting? Are you getting the omniscient voice?
I think I'm getting the omniscient voice. Oh, it says, okay, we've got about 5 minutes. That's what the voice of God says. So.
All right. Well, without going into an actual song, so lately I'm not in a band right now. I think I might be in one soon. But I perform as a bass and its boy. So I wanted to do, when my old band broke up, I wanted to do the singer-songwriter thing.
Were there tears?
There were tears. So I wanted to do the singer-songwriter thing, but I'm just not a guitar player. And so I thought I would do it on the bass.
But what about Michelle Indigo-Cello?
Well, she's fantastic.
She's a singer-songwriter and she plays the bass.
That's true.
It's possible.
It is. So she is really wonderful.
She really is. Bitter, that album. Ooh.
So this, of course, necessitates, as with Michelle Indigo-Cello, it necessitates a lot of overplaying. Like, here's an example. So back to the early mid-90s, Shine by Collective Soul, right?
Okay.
The bass line itself is just really kind of dull. It's tell me what will I find? Will I find? Right? It's very, dull. So if you're doing it on the solo bass, it necessitates something like, yeah, let's try that. You know, so the solo bass becomes a much more, a much broader thing that you don't necessarily see when the bass is in the context of a band. So something like that, or also just doing, you know, more chords. So the chorus of that song might be, you know, and let your light shine down. Oh, and let your light shine down. So really, learning how to take 4 strings and make them bigger. And of course, Hawaii is filled with amazing 4-string players like Jake, obviously, and Taimane. These people who are just brilliant, and so I'm just doing it on a slightly larger scale.
I like it. Okay, I gotta throw in some pop culture into the mix. And you can shoot me down if you think it's ridiculous, but Duran Duran.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh my god, John Taylor's bass.
John Taylor's bass lines. The bass line. The bass line for Rio is brilliant. It's one of my favorite things.
I think what everyone needs to do is they need to go home, put on some earphones, and listen to some Duran Duran, because unfortunately everyone looked at the hair and Simon Le Bon, but when I listen to that, the bass is just like, it's phenomenal
He's amazing.
stuff.
It's amazing. The bass,
really
yeah,
good.
it's.
We gotta give some love to Sir Paul.
Oh,
or Sir Paul McCartney. Some mad skills.
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason why, you know. You wanna out a few more people that you like? They don't have to be the big guns.
Oh
or
gosh.
British.
Well, one of my favorite bass players of all time, honestly, is Eric Avery, who was the original bass player for Jane's Addiction.
Okay.
Because he is so melodic, and if you listen to what I call the Jane's diaspora, all of the sub projects of Jane's Addiction, whether it's Porno for Pyros or Banyan or Dave Navarro by himself or Dave Navarro in the Chili Peppers or
this is like the flow chart now.
any of these projects, the ones that actually sound like what you liked from Jane's Addiction are Eric Avery's solo projects. Deconstruction, Polar Bear, his solo record that he put out a couple years ago, they all have that sort of Bauhaus quality. In fact, Peter Murphy actually asked him to start a band with him. But it's just he's this melodic bass player, and he loves these double stops where he's playing multiple multiple lines at the same time. I mean, you listen for that.
Ooh, yeah.
That classic 3 Days sound is all the bass. So it's
respect the bass, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely respect the bass. So he is definitely one of my favorite, and I think he's one of the unsung heroes of rock and roll.
Not anymore, because this is going to live on YouTube.
That's right. But obviously, Flea, Les Claypool, because I do so much tapping, where he's doing not only 2-hand tapping but double stops with those tappings. With what is the classic example? I don't even know if I know how to play this. So something like, what is that, DMV?
Yeah,
so,
it's got the itch.
I have not played that in years. So guys like that. And Chuck Wagner from Mary's Danish, huge influence. Chris Wagner, excuse me. And Mark King from Level 42.
Oh, you just said that. I'm having some heart palpitations here. Did you know there's a guy in the UK, he changed his name to every single name of the members of the band of UK legally because he's such a rabid fan, or they just might be crazy. I love them. Okay, so think about this. Music, the bass, the language, jewelry, all that good stuff. We have to take a small break, but we are going to be right back. We want you to see some images and explore this and that and the other. Oh my goodness, all on The Art of Life with Joshua Edelstein, and I'm Willow Chang. A Leon.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui, and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle in Cook, Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Welcome back to The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang Alion. We are here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m., but there are numerous shows all throughout the week as well as the weekend, not only here on Think Tech and YouTube, but also on OC16. We have as our guest Josh Edelstein in the house. Of Edelstein, what is your company called?
I say Edelstein Edelsteiner,
I
which
love
is
You have to explain because your name actually has a reference to jewelry.
That's correct. So the proper German pronunciation of my name is Edelstein, but I'm neither German nor proper. So
and the proper word for jewelry in German is Schmuck.
That's correct. That is correct. Sadly,
true.
It is very sad.
And they call it like hair jewelry is Haarschmuck.
Or
And then
Schmucken,
if you are shopping for Christmas ornaments, it's called Baumschmuck.
Yes. Thankfully, that part wasn't in my name.
No.
Although I have certainly been called that. So Edelstein literally means gemstone or jewel.
Fantastic.
And although I pronounce my name Edelstein, like my father before me,
Right.
and I assume his father before him, I could not resist the pun. And in German, if you add an E to the end of a word that ends in the consonant, it pluralizes it. So if my last name was Schmidt and I sold diamonds, it would be Schmidt Edelsteiner. And so I couldn't resist calling the company Edelstein Edelsteiner because it means Edelstein's gems. And every single native speaker of German I've ever shown my card to instantly laughs because they get it. So.
People who love puns, they're my kind of people.
Yes.
They really are.
How could I resist?
How can you resist? I couldn't. So let's go do a little traveling here at the table.
Certainly.
We started off here at your far left, and that was all good things auspicious in Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Our next symbol, man after my own heart, you got to show us this.
So this is a khamsa, which in Arabic literally means five,
Right.
as you know.
The five
And
pillars of Islam,
that's right.
or
and
sometimes known as the Hand of Fatima.
the hand of Fatima, or also the hand of God for the
Yes,
Jews.
this is true.
For my people. And this one actually is very special to me. This stone, so speaking of jewelry having mana and things like your bracelet that your father gave you, the stone in the center of this, and this was designed, you can tell that it's not shiny and it looks a little beat up, and that was
A little
intentional.
patina.
Yeah, I wanted it to
Yeah.
look old. And the stone at the center actually is not a real sapphire, but it's glass, but it's irreplaceable because this stone came from one of my grandfather's cufflinks.
Oh.
And
I almost thought you were going to say it was your class ring.
no, my grandfather's cufflinks, and he basically passed a bunch of jewelry on to me, and so I removed it, and I still have one other just like it, but I removed it and put it in the middle of the khamsa because it's that same blue.
Blue, the protectionary eye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was perfect, and so now this way it's like my Zadie is up there protecting me.
That is fantastic. So, for
And the
those
chain
of-
was his as well.
That is great. So for those of you who are uninitiated to this khamsa, probably the only thing I'd consider tattooing on my body if I were to do something like that. Don't worry, Mom, it's not happening yet. The blue is a protectionary color, and it's often used in the shape of an eye, and this is to ward off the evil eye.
Exactly.
And I think in Hawaii we might kind of refer to it as stink eye. everyone knows what stink eye is,
stink
unfortunately.
eye, totally.
But the idea is it's kind of like my eye, it's going to deflect your eye. And this is something that you see all throughout the Middle East, Northern Africa, the Mediterranean, and not exclusive to those countries, because certain places in Southeast Asia, they paint the eyes on the boats or what have you.
Yep.
But everyone knows that, like, you just do not want to get the evil eye because it's harmful stuff. Someone bachied you, brother. So it's good to have a hamsa. It is. And if you have an eye and a hand, you're doubly protected.
Absolutely. And so this actually, going with that protection, that idea of protection, this hamsa over here.
Hand of Miriam is the other term.
That's right, Hand of Miriam. So this one is sterling silver and enamel. And this one was done, so this is more of a Kabbalistic approach. I always wanted to make, you see, if you read these old Kabbalistic texts, you see these.
This is the ancient mystic sects of Judaism.
That's correct. So you see these amulets that just have this stuff written all over them. And so I wanted to do one of those. And there's a section of the Amidah, which is sort of the central prayer of the Jewish worship service. And there's a section where they say Melech Ozer Umashiach Umagain, which basically is 4 ways of addressing God and sort of bringing the Shekhinah, the Spirit, into you. And the idea is that it's a progression. And so Melech is king, and you might meet a king once in a lifetime, but you're not gonna, you might not be able to look at them, and the audience will be short. But ostensibly the king has your best interests in mind because you're the subject. And then Ozer is a helper, so someone who helps you, where it's something like, well, maybe like you dropped a paper on the ground and someone helps, it's more personal but still very impersonal because it doesn't necessarily imply a solid relationship. Then Moshiach is savior with a small s. But so this could be like you fell through the ice and the fireman pulled you out, kind of thing. Or I guess here in Hawaii it would be the fireman paddles out on his yellow surfboard. Exactly. So, and then Magain is shield. So the idea that something is so close to you that nothing can get to you but through it. And that's very personal. And so it's this 4-part progression of protection that you're bringing into you. And so that's in the fingers. So I had to do one of these only one thumb hamsas instead of the classic.
Instead of the double.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's in the fingers, and then there's a Kabbalistic idea of the 72 names of God, and that's actually there's a section of the Torah that they get them from. But so the name here is basically the name that is for protection. So it's for warding off the evil eye.
Wow.
So it sits there in the same place that the evil eye would sit if this was a traditional hamsa. And then the crown, which both signifies God's kingship, but also looks like the Hebrew letter Shin, which by itself represents Shaddai, which is the name of God.
El Shaddai.
El Shaddai, the Almighty. And so, so going with that protection motif and just building that into a hamsa and seeing how complicated can I make it and still have it make sense. So that is one.
Awesome.
And then, because I know you like the hamsas,
I
I've
know.
continued. I'm going to cover up the price because that's gauche. So this set of earrings is the hamsa, but with the Kabbalistic tree of
The
life,
tree of
the
life,
sefirot inside of it.
It's fantastic.
So that, and this actually design is the one that made me think that I could go into sort of a mass production kind of thing. So this is sort of what started all of the.
And are you still on that path?
I am.
Cool.
I'm working on it. I have a subsidiary of my main website that is for retail. So,
Very cool.
And some of these designs you can find there.
We have a few more pieces I'd love for you to speak about, including, I know some of the history. Take it away, my friend.
Certainly.
I'm fascinated.
Okay, so Will, you just touched this one.
Yeah.
So
is this Myeong? Is this Myeong? Or
I don't know if it's Thai or Myeong, but I first learned about this kind of design. Do you remember Kristen Bacon?
I sure do. She's
So-
my childhood neighbor.
That's
Hello,
right.
Kristen Bacon.
In fact, I met Kristen the same night I met you at your junior prom.
My date was my cousin. That's all you need to know. And it's not because we're like in Oklahoma. It's just I couldn't get a date.
My date was not pleased with me. But so she used to work at Claire de Lune, which was down on King Street
Right.
by Puck's Alley. And one day I was hanging out with her while she was working, and they had a necklace like this, and I thought it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. And it was $300, and I was in high school, and I could not afford that. So
And the Wayback Machine, that's like a lot of cash flow.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it now, it's like, it's not that much considering the work, but for a high schooler it is.
Yeah, and 88, 89, it was a lot more money.
It
So
was.
I basically sat there for an hour just figuring out how it was made.
This is before cell phones where you could like just take a
Just
picture.
take a picture, exactly. So I sat there for an hour figuring out how it was made, and then I wrote it down. I drew sketches, and I put it in a drawer. And years later, I came back to it, and I thought, oh, okay, I got plenty of time, and I basically hand coiled every single one of these coils.
Plenty of time.
Well, I was watching a lot of TV at the time.
This looks like something from like the Count of Monte Cristo. He's just like in a prison and he's making something. You have
Kind
to
of.
see this. Can we get a little closer? Possibly. Bring your arm. Each, what would you call it? A filament? Each wire
Each coil.
coil of silver. And then what does the back look like?
The back is also very interesting, and that was sort of where I spent most of my time while I was looking at
Do
it.
you have OCD? It's amazing. It really is. Yow.
Yeah, I've only made 2 of these ever, and
There's a reason for that.
there is a reason for that, and so I don't think that I would. Well, let's say it would be a lot of money to do it again, but I do love this. My wife seals it for me constantly, so.
May I feel the weight?
Certainly, yeah.
This is definitely not something you want to wear when you're going through like TSA.
No, it's
And-
it's a choker on me, but on my wife it's a bigger necklace.
That's
so.
fantastic. It is fantastic.
It also makes a good bracelet, so
It
can be
does.
sort of multifunctional. But so that is a good thing.
Okay, we're gonna squeeze one more in, then we have to squeeze in a little tiny break, and then we're gonna plow through a bunch more. Let's go here.
Let's go here.
I
So,
see something that looks like water.
yes, it is. So this says 桃花流水, which is basically it's actually from a poem. It's part of my Chinese romance collection, and it means pear blossoms and flowing water. And it's the idea that although the blossoms fall on the water and they never sink in the water, they flow along peacefully together. So it's a metaphor for a relationship where you don't lose your identity, but the two of you, while maintaining your separate identities, follow the same path.
Oh, that's so
So
beautiful. It's kind of like the Khalil Gibran when he's talking about the trees have to grow apart so they don't cover each other in the shade. Something, but yours is so much more poetic.
Wow, I didn't write it. I just put it on metal.
It's beautiful. Chinese New Year's coming up.
Chinese
As
New Year's
is
coming up.
Valentine's
That's
Day,
correct.
if I may make that observation.
It was originally done for Valentine's Day, so
Aw.
the collection came out around Valentine's Day.
My goodness. That would keep somebody in for a while, wouldn't it?
I hope so.
Forget sales.
Right.
Okay, we have to take a small little break. We're going to be right back, so stay tuned. We're here on The Art of Life.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Thankfully, you didn't see me catching a swig of my green tea down there under the table, but you gotta stay hydrated. This is The Art of Life. So many wonderful things that we're exploring here with artist, musician, and Renaissance man, Joshua. Welcome back. You were gonna tell us about this necklace here.
Certainly. So another one of my collections that I like quite well is I did what I call the Copernica collection, and it is essentially based on the solar system. It actually started with Jupiter for a friend's birthday.
Is
And
Pluto still included even though it's been excommunicated?
Pluto is included.
Okay.
Although I'm waiting for the Messenger spacecraft to take better photo, or was Messenger Mercury? I can't remember. But so whatever the spacecraft that they're sending out to Pluto is, I'm waiting for better pictures so I can revamp the design. But this right here is Venus.
The goddess of love.
Absolutely. So again, Valentine's Day coming up, and I love it because it's a strong design, but it's such a delicate piece.
It really is.
And so, and I have all 9 planets, including Pluto. Poor Pluto. And also I have the Sun, and I have Ganymede, which is a moon of Jupiter, and the Moon. I have our Moon as well. I think that rounds it out to 12. So, and I'll be adding slowly, and I'm working on redoing Mercury right now that they've got better photos, because the previous ones were really terrible. So
I'd have to say that this is very much a thinking person as well as an artistic person's, your designs, your inspiration, and all those things, that's where it all intersects. I mean, it's so beautiful.
It does, although other thinking people
There's
may...
like no Homer Simpson pendant.
That's
What's
true,
wrong?
that's true. Other thinking people may disagree, however. I had the opportunity to meet Neil deGrasse Tyson. And
Wait, tell us who this is.
so Neil deGrasse Tyson is the head of the planetarium in New York City.
Okay.
So,
okay.
and is a widely respected and loved personality for science, basically promoting science. And he's a nice guy, but he made fun of me for calling it the Copernica collection because he said, "What are you going to do, stop at Saturn?" So, whereas my whole thing was Copernica created the heliocentric model of the solar system, and therefore, since I was doing a solar system collection, it should be called the Copernica collection.
You're all about inclusiveness.
So, I am.
That's your Hawaii
So,
side.
exactly.
Come on.
So,
New Yorkers.
but he made fun of me, which is too bad. It was a promotion opportunity.
Well,
missed.
no free merchandise for him.
That's right. So here we have this set of earrings. I should have brought the pendant because it might be easier to see on camera. But this is, I call him Sad Dog. He comes in earrings and a pendant. So, and the earrings I have both on posts and on French wires. But
Not to be confused with Grumpy Cat.
that's right.
Don't you wish you had that cat? That person's making millions of dollars.
She is.
It's just for like a congenitive birth defect.
Exactly. But it's such a cute cat.
It is.
So this was actually a reject from a bunch of designs I was doing for a client, and but this was my favorite design, so I was actually glad that she didn't want that one.
Yeah.
So I decided to make Sad Dog a reality, and
Which brings me to this. So when someone hires you, or commissions a work, I should say, is the proper terminology, there's the understanding that that's an exclusive design for the client themselves? Like you're not going to go mass produce it, or what?
it depends on what it is. There are occasions where I've asked if I can reproduce the design, but typically I'm actually dealing with this with a client right now.
Yeah.
There's a design that I have on my website where it's the pendant itself is a timbrel, and you can actually shake it and make sound. And he wanted a reproduction of this for his wife, and I said, I worked with the customer on this design, and it originated with a drawing of hers, and
Yeah.
I can't sell you this. I can sell you another, maybe timbrel with a different design on it, but I can't exactly reproduce this. So frequently I will let people be inspired by the work that they see on my website. But by and large, since there are 2 websites, the Edelstein website has everything that I've done, including the custom work, and then there's the sub-site that has just the things that are for sale. So, so if someone's looking for something specific, I try to refer them to the second one.
Wise. We have some images that we'd like to share that you've brought. Look at this. Fantastic. This is the image that we threw up on Facebook
That's right.
earlier, I should say late last night, to encourage people to watch this episode. Tell us about these rings, because a lot of people clicked like. They thought these were fantastic.
Wow, that pleases me. So this was, I call them the 4 Seasons rings, and it was a set of wedding rings for a friend. And basically they really wanted to have this idea of sort of a continuation of life. And so it has 4 species around the band. Each band basically has the same design, just slightly different proportions. And I'm going to embarrass myself by not remembering this. For winter, we had mistletoe. For spring, there was, I think it was acacia, but we also have I'm really not remembering this off the top of my
Something
head.
that looks like a
But-
fishbone to me.
Oh, that is, I think the fishbone one, the one that looks like a fishbone is actually acacia, I think.
Okay.
And it's got little puffs of blossoms on the other side. And then also around the band we have 4 different phases of the moon.
Oh, that's so
And so
beautiful.
basically there's this idea of renewal with both the season,
Yeah.
the solar and the lunar cycle, heavily rooted in nature.
You pagan, you. I
So,
love
well,
it.
actually, they wanted there to be a Wiccan and a Masonic influence on both of those. So the
Fantastic.
species were actually chosen from species that were important to both of those. So,
Super.
um,
We're going to quickly pan through. We only have seconds, but I want people to see.
all right.
Okay, seal script? Yes,
That
no,
is
maybe?
seal script. That's
Yeah.
correct, and that's a gold ring that I did out of scrap, which was great.
Wow.
Here, this actually is the core of my own wedding ring.
This looks like
Um,
Flash Gordon to me.
Well,
It's
and
fantastic.
so I'm showing you that because that's the inside, and it's a platinum core, and then we basically covered it out to the level of those letters.
Right.
That's cursive Hebrew, so that when you actually look at my band at a glance, it just sort of looks like a plain silver band. But if you look at it in the right light, you actually see those letters poking through because they're slightly different colors than
So cool.
silver. So that was that. And then these are. This is one of my newer things. I produced this in the last 6 months. These are plumeria demi hoops. Once I moved home to Hawaii,
Yeah, it's inspirational.
and I realized I didn't have any Hawaiiana, and I really needed to expand into that. So
We have 2 more images so quickly that you have to see this.
okay, so
I remember seeing this on Facebook and being blown away.
yes, so this I made for Hanukkah this year. I made a almost 8 foot tall giant menorah. That,
What did neighbors think?
they were curious, but there wasn't really any.
Everybody likes
complaints.
fire.
Everyone likes fire.
Everyone
so.
likes fire.
And then here, this is my favorite image of the 2 of us. This is, remember, our friend Eric took this, and this was basically, what's nice about this is in front of the Hawaii Prince Hotel,
I remember.
which is on the site of the Kaiser Hospital where I was born.
Ah, yes.
But this is my favorite image of the 2 of us, and that was summer of '91,
Those crazy kids.
back when I had hair.
I'm still living with my mom, so nothing has changed much.
Well,
I have bangs now.
I have
so.
bolo head now, so dreadlocks to bolo head.
Dreadlocks to bolo head. Hey, that could be the name of an album.
Oh, yeah.
All things are interconnected. Josh, it's been so great having you on the show.
Thank you so
Can
much for
you
having
tell
me.
our viewers again the names of your website and
Certainly.
also if you have a gig that's up and coming?
I don't have any gigs scheduled right now. My website for the jewelry is either at Edelstein-Edelsteiner.com, and for music you can find me either at bassandboy.com or youtube.com/bassandboy.
Bass and Boy.
So
Fantastic.
and, look for me playing around Honolulu.
We're going to have you again, I promise. It's been so great.
Thank you so much for having me.
We want to make sure that you tune in next week. It will be same time, same place, Friday 2 to 3 p.m., The Art of Life. I'm Willow Chang, Leon, your host. Always a pleasure. Aloha.